Hi, and welcome back. I was attempting to record this and I was speaking and I kept hearing tap, 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 and it kept continuing. So I stopped and I looked up here where I have a window, and sure enough, there is this beautiful little bluebird with these blue feathers that I don't think I've ever seen before. And it was trying to get into this room, and I think it wanted to say hello. Maybe it's the bluebird of happiness saying that, hey, you're on the right track. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I tried to get a picture and I couldn't. Of course, he disappeared the minute I wanted to capture him on film. But we'll see if he comes back. Okay. In the last episode, we explored the emotional chain reaction that can unfold inside us so very quickly. A thought arises, the body responds, a sensation or feeling appears, and that feeling can become an emotion. And if we're not conscious, that emotion can drive our reaction, our behavior, and sometimes the entire direction of our day. And it all started with just one thought. So today I want to go deeper into emotions. Because if we want to reclaim our energy, we need to understand what emotions really are and why so many of them get trapped in our system. You may have heard that emotions are energy in motion. Emotion, right? Well, I love that definition because it reminds us that emotions are not meant to stay stuck. They are meant to move. They rise, they pass through, and they give us information. They're asking to be felt. And then, if we don't block them, they complete their movement. But most of us were never taught how to feel difficult emotions and how to let them move through us. Instead, we learn to manage them in ways that often keep them trapped. We learn to deny them, to escape them, to suppress or repress them, to distract ourselves from them, to numb them, to control them, or to act them out, right? And what happens when we do that is that the energy behind those emotions, it doesn't disappear. It stays in our system. So we shut down, we contract, and we brace. And this is how the natural flow of energy through our body becomes distorted. This is one of the reasons why so many people feel energetically drained. It's not because energy is unavailable, but because so much of it is getting used up in resistance. Resistance to what we feel, resistance to what life is showing us, resistance to uncertainty, resistance to discomfort, resistance to what's happening in the moment. And that resistance is directly tied to our preferences in life, our likes and dislikes, and all the ways we think that life should be. This is part of our programming. Very often, we falsely assume that if we avoid our fears and we fulfill our desires, we will live happily ever after, and we will be perfectly happy. Well, isn't that what we've been doing our entire lives? And how is that working for us? If you're watching this, you're probably ready to consider that maybe what your mind is telling you isn't always good advice. What if life has a much better plan for us than what we think we need to get or avoid? What if whatever shows up in our experience is actually here to help us evolve, wake up, and reach higher and higher states of peace and freedom? Well, as much as the ego mind resists this, the deeper energy field that you are already knows this as truth. And if we're constantly struggling and needing more energy, it's because there is a tug of war going on between the ego mind and our higher self. Or more accurately, it's the ego mind that consumes so much of that free-flowing energy by focusing on avoiding fears, fulfilling desires, and resisting the natural flow of life.
Do you remember the emotional chain reaction?
It starts with a single thought that leads to an emotional state, a mood, an attitude. And when negative thoughts are repeated and believed, this can quickly escalate into a state of anger, cynicism, discouragement, depression, apathy, or even despair. Those lower states are the result of very little energy moving through the system. But the good news is they're not permanent. They were created little by little, one thought at a time. And with more awareness of what's happening in our body, we can begin to turn this around and to consciously allow more energy into our system. Because remember, our power is internal. We have to stop believing that people or circumstances have more power over us than we do. We're the ones in here. We're the ones believing our thoughts. Our thoughts change our body chemistry, and they change how we feel emotionally. So how are we processing our emotions? Are we allowing them to move through us, or are we keeping them trapped inside? The effects of blocked emotional energy are fatigue, heaviness, inner tension, reactivity, emotional overwhelm, and that constant sense of depletion. This is why emotional awareness matters so much. Not because emotions are the problem. Our emotions are not the problem. The problem is that we were never taught how to stay present with them long enough for their energy to move. Instead of passing through us, they get stored in our system, and they continue to shape the way we feel, we perceive, and we respond to life. Emotions are just part of our feedback system, just like discomfort in our body. They can tell us two important things. First, how much energy is moving through us, and second, whether we're perceiving or experiencing things as pleasant or unpleasant. Okay, what do I mean by this? Let's do a little check-in. In this moment, would you say you're experiencing mostly high energy or low energy? Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. Just tune in and make note. Now, would you say that in this moment, you're experiencing mostly pleasantness or unpleasantness? Make a note of that as well. Okay, you ready for the results? If your energy is high and you are in an unpleasant state, you may be experiencing emotions in the range of anger, frustration, anxiety, or agitation, right? If your energy is low and your state is unpleasant, you may be experiencing sadness, heaviness, discouragement, or hopelessness. If your energy is high and your state is pleasant, you may be experiencing joy, enthusiasm, excitement, or inspiration. And if your energy is low and you're in a pleasant state, you may be experiencing calm, ease, stillness, or peace. Simple, right? This is a really easy way for you to begin connecting the dots between your energy and your state of mind or your perception without judgment, right? So instead of saying, what is wrong with me? We can say, oh, there's a lot of energy here and it feels unpleasant. Or actually, there's not a lot of energy, but it feels pleasant, right? So this brings curiosity instead of judgment. And curiosity creates space. And space is always good because it brings more awareness. I want you to notice that what you experience as pleasant or unpleasant is directly tied to the thoughts you're believing. And remember, thoughts are not facts. So sometimes a change in attitude can shift us from unpleasantness to pleasantness. It's up to you. As you become more familiar with what's happening inside you, you'll also become more able to self-regulate. You'll begin to notice when you're activated. You'll notice when you're shutting down, and you'll notice when your nervous system is asking for support. And little by little, through breath, awareness, acceptance, and kindness, you can begin guiding yourself back into balance. This is powerful stuff, and honestly, it's unbelievable that most of us were never taught this. Instead, when an unpleasant emotion arises, most people tend to deal with it in one of three ways. 1, they deny it. 2, they escape it. Or 3, they express it outwardly, often through blame, reaction, or projection onto others. But there is another way. Can you guess what it is? It's really not rocket science. The most freeing way to experience emotions is consciously. In other words, to feel them fully enough so that they can move through us. That's how we set our emotions free instead of trapping them in our body. It's simple, right? Yeah, in theory. In practice, it doesn't always feel great, right? And that's why most people will automatically default to denying, escaping, suppressing, or dumping the emotion onto somebody else. But that only creates more contraction and more energetic blockages. Whereas staying present enough to feel the emotion and let its energy move is what begins to free us. No, it's not always easy, especially if that emotion is really strong. Maybe it touches an old wound, and maybe your nervous system has spent years believing that certain feelings are unsafe. So it's really important to be gentle with ourselves. We don't force, we don't push, we don't want to overwhelm ourselves. We begin by practicing with small things. Somebody left the toilet seat up. Can we breathe? A driver cut us off, or the weather is not matching our preferences. We breathe, we soften, we notice where the discomfort is, and we allow it to be there, right? We stop arguing with the fact that it's there, and little by little, the energy begins to move. Sometimes it moves as tears, sometimes as trembling, sometimes as heat, sometimes as a sigh, and sometimes it just simply softens. So we don't try to make the emotion go away as fast as possible. The important thing is to stop fighting with it, because what we resist tends to persist, and what we allow can begin to move. So if you've been feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, or emotionally stuck, please hear this. It's not permanent. Your energy may simply be bound up in patterns that can change. Every emotion that arises is an opportunity to practice. Not to blame yourself, not to analyze everything perfectly, not to fix your whole life in one moment, but to come back to your body, to breathe, to notice, to allow, and to let that energy move. And this is exactly how we slowly begin to reclaim all the energy that has been tied up in old pain, old fear, and old protection. So this week, when an unpleasant emotion arises, try this. Pause, take a slow, deep belly breath, and notice where you feel that discomfort in your body. You can gently place your hand there if you want, and remind yourself, this is energy moving through me. I don't have to fight it. I can stay present with it, one breath at a time. You don't even need to understand where this emotion is coming from. You really don't. All you need to do is to learn how to release the energy that's trapped. Life is constantly showing us where our blockages are. And eventually, we may come to see that as a gift. Next time, we'll go deeper into the second essential step on this path, training the mind to shift from resistance into acceptance. Because acceptance is a state of mind. It's an attitude that allows energy to move without getting trapped again and again. I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you feel like it. And as always, you can find me at consciousliving.solutions.com. And all my books are available on Amazon and Ingram Spark. I really appreciate your presence on this journey with me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Peace.
Just a quick update on that bird I saw. I was hoping it would come back, but it didn't. And I was struck after filming this episode how beautiful it was with its blue feathers on its head, and it reminded me of a chickadee. Anyway, I looked it up on the internet, and this is the closest I could find, a Eurasian blue tit. And guess what? They don't come here in Edmonton, Alberta. So I don't know what that was. I can't find anything similar. But anyway, I think it's a beautiful synchronicity, and maybe that little bird had a message for us. Maybe someone on this channel at some point has asked for a sign of a bluebird, and here it is. That's your sign.